Hi guys. Tonight we travel backward farther than pyramids, beyond the first farmers, deep into the Ice Age, where you would probably not survive 5 minutes without a mammoth fur coat and a very stubborn will to live. Imagine this. Your breath fogs instantly, frost forms on your eyelashes, and the world hums with wind so cold it sculpts stone. The stars are sharp as flint, the air metallic with snow. You stand before the mouth of a cave, smoke curling faintly from within, the only hint that warmth and life persist inside. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'd love to know where and when you're listening, so post your location and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, let your shoulders drop, and step closer to that ancient fire. You trudge through snow that squeaks like crushed glass. The entrance yawns, wide but welcoming, rimmed with icicles. Inside, the air shifts less cruel, tinged with smoke, damp stone, and the faint musk of animal hide. This is the shelter of our ancestors, carved by rivers long gone, adopted by clever creatures who refuse to die out. Archaeologists still find traces of them, blackened ceilings from ancient fires, bone fragments, carved tools. You crouch low, feeling the floor slope gently downward. Each drip of water echoes like a slow heartbeat. It's strange how quickly your body accepts the dark as home. Your eyes adjust to the soft glow of the hearth. Flames hiss, snapping at resin in dry pine. Shadows ripple across the walls, giving the illusion of motion. Bison and reindeer seem to dance where no human hand moves. The cave isn't just stone, it's alive in the light. You press a palm to the wall. The limestone feels cool, smooth, and steady, older than memory. Early humans must have sensed that too, the way the earth seemed to cradle them. Anthropologists argue whether they chose caves for symbolism or survival, but probably both. Outside, winds howl like distant beasts. Inside, the temperature stabilizes. A modern thermostat could learn something from a good cave, constant, insulated by rock and earth, protected from snow and predators. You picture the first families realizing this, dragging branches and skins to the threshold, sealing gaps with mud and moss. A fortress against winter, built not by architects but by instinct. You hunker near the fire and watch your breath mingle with smoke. It smells of pine resin, of damp fur, of soot that stains everything a ghostly grey. The scent might seem unpleasant now, but for them, it was safety itself, a chemical lullaby. They inhaled smoke and warmth, the opposite of cold emptiness. There's something profoundly human about that need to transform discomfort into comfort, to find softness where nature offers none. You hear movement behind you, a rustle of hide, a low murmur, maybe a child half asleep. The small group stirs around the flames. A woman adds a log, sparks spiraling upward. The sound alone feels protective. No one speaks much. Breath is too precious. A man nearby sharpens a bone point slowly, rhythmically, until even the scraping seems part of a lullaby. In such nights, silence and repetition were medicine for the mind. Historians still debate whether language developed around firelight stories or the quiet companionship of shared survival. Either way, something about warmth made words feel worth the effort. You think about the first person who realized the cave could hold heat. Maybe they noticed how the walls stayed warm long after the fire dimmed, how steam rose from wet fur, how the body itself became part of the insulation. Heat isn't wasted here, it clings to every surface, saturating the air with life. Prehistoric people didn't just sleep, they cocooned themselves in an ecosystem designed by chance and improved by need. The fire dies a little. The orange core glows through ash, heartbeat slow. You imagine lying down on a bed of leaves and moss, the ceiling only a few feet above your face. The rock radiates faint warmth, the same kind you feel from an animal's flank after it's lain in the sunday. There's no pillow, no mattress, just layers of fur, and woven grass. And yet, studies of skeletal remains show few signs of chronic back pain. Your ancestors, it seems, had posture perfected by necessity. Perhaps they slept deeply because they lived intensely each day of hunting and gathering, guaranteeing exhaustion that modern screens can't replicate. A drop of water lands near your head, startling you for a moment. Then you notice the rhythm. Plink, pause, plink. The cave leaks. Yes, but even that sound becomes familiar, almost soothing, a natural metronome for breathing. Prehistoric people didn't need white noise machines. They had the steady percussion of Earth itself. Imagine lying there, wrapped in pelts, muscles loose, knowing that tomorrow you'll need every ounce of energy again. Somewhere deeper in the cave, you think you hear the faint echo of voices, real or imagined. It doesn't matter. Maybe they're from another group tucked in a nearby chamber, their laughter drifting through narrow corridors. The thought of others nearby is comforting. In this frozen world, community is insulation too. A single person might freeze, but a group creates a microclimate of warmth and belonging. You close your eyes. The light flickers through your eyelids, red and gold. Fire has a way of whispering time away. Thousands of winters ago, someone else lay just like this, gazing into the same kind of flame, dreaming of food, of sunlight, maybe of the very summer you take for granted. In the grand sweep of history, their breath, your breath, it's the same rhythm repeated endlessly in the human story. Your mind drifts. The darkness feels soft now, not menacing. You're inside the planet itself, tucked beneath layers of stone that have seen glaciers come and go. Somewhere above, snow thickens, muffling the world to silence. Down here, the air hums gently with life, the heart of a temporary civilization flickering in orange light. It's humbling, isn't it? We've built skyscrapers and soft beds, yet none offer the same certainty against cold that this cave once gave. Here, survival and sleep were one act. You breathe, you rest, you endure. Every sigh, every shared blanket, every spark of fire was defiance against extinction. So as the flame sinks low and shadows stretch long, picture yourself curling deeper into the warmth, muscles unwinding, mind loosening like thawing ice. Outside, winter rages. Inside, you drift between waking and dreaming, where survival feels like a lullaby and history breathes beside you. The cave holds its breath. You sense it, the stillness between fire crackles, the hush of rock that has witnessed millennia. This is where the idea of home was born, long before walls or doors. The cave isn't just shelter from wind and claw, it's a womb carved from the planet itself. You crawl farther in, feeling the air shift from icy to faintly damp, the temperature leveling like a deep, slow heartbeat. You're entering the first architecture of comfort. You pause to listen. Somewhere behind, a faint drip echoes. Ahead, soft embers pulse, glowing red as the sun through eyelids. The people here, your Ice Age kin, have learned to read these caverns like maps of survival. They know where to sleep so the smoke rises safely upward, where echoes warn of bears or rival tribes. To them, this cave isn't wild. It's a friend with moods and habits. You settle near a wall smoothed by thousands of fingertips. The limestone gleams faintly, almost polished. It radiates the day's stored heat. Archaeologists have found similar caves across Europe, places like Chauvet and El Castillo, where soot marks and handprints overlap like signatures of generations. A mainstream fact: some of these caves were occupied for hundreds of years, reused by families who likely returned each winter to the same comforting darkness. There's something deeply human in that pattern, the yearning for return. You can almost imagine a prehistoric mother, tracing her palm against the same spot you touch now, whispering to her child that the stone remembers them. The idea might sound poetic, but early people believed it literally. Many anthropologists note that caves were sacred spaces as much as shelters. To sleep inside one wasn't just rest, it was communion with the earth's belly, the place of origin. Historians still argue whether the paintings and rituals were purely practical or spiritual acts meant to honor the walls that protected them. The firelight plays tricks again. It stretches shapes into slow dances. You notice how your breathing slows in rhythm with the flickering. It's the first calm you've felt since trudging through snow. The prehistoric mind likely recognized this. Even without the words, caves induce safety through stillness and sensory dimness. The human nervous system, tuned for danger, finally eases when sound is muffled, when light is low, when walls enclose the edges of the unknown. Now, imagine lying against that stone, wrapped in furs. Your body heat radiates into the wall, and the wall gives some back, a primitive feedback loop comfort built on reciprocity. This is the earliest form of environmental design. Modern architects study airflow and insulation. Your ancestors mastered it with instinct. They understood that the back of the cave stays warmest in winter and coolest in summer. It's not romantic myth. It's measurable. Even now, caves maintain near-constant temperatures year-round, hovering around 10 degrees Celsius, 50 degrees Fahrenheit, in many regions. The air feels moist on your skin, carrying the faint metallic tang of minerals. Somewhere above, water seeps through fissures, adding trace scents of earth and algae. It isn't unpleasant. In fact, it smells like life continuing. You think of modern humidifiers and air purifiers, yet here, it's all self-regulating the slow breathing of stone. A quirky tidbit. Some researchers believe negative ions produced in natural caves might have subtly influenced mood, promoting the sense of peace early humans associated with these sanctuaries. Whether that's science or wishful thinking, the effect feels real enough in your imagination. The clan's fire pops again. Sparks drift up and vanish into blackness. You realize that this isn't just a roof, it's a cocoon for the senses. Every sound is softened, every movement muffled. No wonder prehistoric people slept more deeply here than in the open. In the wild, wind and predators kept nerves taut. Inside, walls became extensions of the skin, boundaries of safety. Someone near the hearth shifts, murmurs, and pulls a fur tighter. Their breathing evens out again. You glance toward the entrance, half sealed with brush and hide. A faint blue glow seeps through gaps, marking night's advance. The wind outside is still fierce, but its roar feels far away like ocean waves when you're safely inland. You try to picture how they arranged themselves each night. Elders likely closest to the fire, children tucked between adults, hunters at the edges. Their positions weren't random. They mirrored social order and protection strategy. A mainstream historical fact. Evidence from hearth patterns in prehistoric sites shows concentric circles of living fire at the center, sleeping and working spaces radiating outward. It was design born of necessity, but also intuition. Your thoughts wander to how this living architecture shaped the mind. To sleep so close to others, hearing every sigh, every breath, it must have trained empathy itself. Survival required awareness not just of threats, but of one another's rest. A cough, a stir, a nightmare mutter, all shared. It's an intimacy we've mostly forgotten, hidden behind drywall and solitude. You wonder if they ever feared the dark parts of the cave. Surely there were sections they avoided, tunnels where bats stirred, where echoes distorted sound into ghostly moans. Yet even fear had its function. It kept them near the warmth, near the familiar glow. Fear defined boundaries, and boundaries defined comfort. Maybe that's the real origin of bedtime rituals, the assurance that someone had tamed the shadows for the night. You lie down on the fur bedding they've prepared, layers of grass, moss, and skin stitched crudely but effectively. It's softer than you expect. The air carries a sweet, musky odor of dried herbs, perhaps something scattered to deter insects or spirits. No chemicals, no plastic, just nature's own fabric softener. And as you exhale, you realize that these people didn't go camping. This was their daily life. Sleep wasn't leisure. It was recovery from the elemental struggle that daylight demanded. Somewhere deeper, a baby fusses, then quiets as its mother hums. The melody is low, repetitive, almost like breathing itself. You close your eyes and picture generations doing the same thing. That sound, soft human voice against the wind may have been the first lullaby. Maybe the cave amplified it, let it resonate gently through stone, a shared heartbeat for the clan. Scholars debate whether early humans truly felt safe or merely less unsafe, but it hardly matters in this moment. The contrast between deathly cold outside and radiating warmth within must have triggered a joy so profound that it bordered on spiritual. The first concept of gratitude might have been born right here, the relief of warmth, of stillness, of life continuing one more night. And so, as the firelight dwindles, you sense the cave exhale. Condensation beads along the ceiling, glowing faintly in the last light. You imagine time passing, snow piling deeper outside, while inside, breath and heartbeat continue. The stone remembers every sigh, every flicker. It is, quite literally, the memory of human comfort taking form. You close your eyes and let that memory wrap around you too. The cold can rage, the world can freeze, but inside this cradle of stone, sleep blooms like firelight, steady and ancient. The fire has settled into a glowing bed of embers, its soft orange light pulsing like the world's first heartbeat. You feel the heat on your face, the faint brush of smoke against your skin. It doesn't sting, it soothes. Your eyes follow the shadows it casts, long swaying shapes that crawl across the cave walls, merging and separating like half-remembered dreams. Fire was more than warmth to the people who lived here. It was the planet's first lullaby. You sit close enough to hear the wood sigh as it breaks down. The crackling is hypnotic, almost musical. You imagine those sounds echoed in 100 other caves across the Ice Age world. Long before clocks, firelight dictated time. When the flames burned high, people talked, repaired tools, told stories. As the light dimmed, their voices slowed, and sleep crept nearer. Most researchers agree that this nightly rhythm, the fading of light into quiet, helped shape the first consistent sleep patterns in human history. It's strange to think of your ancestors mastering something so fundamental, not just how to make fire, but how to live by its rhythm. The body learned to wind down with the smoke, the mind to follow its dimming light. The relationship between fire and rest became instinctive. When the flames danced, so did the brain. When they waned, the eyes followed, drooping. Modern sleep scientists might call it circadian alignment, but to those cave dwellers, it was simply the earth telling them, rest now. You stare deeper into the coals. Every flicker seems alive. Light wavers across the walls, and with each shift, painted bison seem to move, horses appear mid-gallop. You can almost see why they might have believed the walls themselves breathed with spirit. There's a curious idea some anthropologists propose that firelight helped train early imagination. The constant flickering could have turned the brain inward, sparking hallucinations or creative visions. In that sense, the first dreams might have been born right here, between shadow and flame. An odd little discovery supports that thought. At several cave sites, archaeologists have found deliberate arrangements of stones near hearths, like miniature circles perhaps used to hold small fires that flickered near sleeping areas. They weren't for cooking, they were for watching. People may have stared into those little flames until the boundary between reality and dream began to dissolve. The warmth was real, but what the mind saw in that trembling light belonged to another world. You glance around the chamber now. Most of the group has drifted into a kind of half-sleep. Some recline against the walls, others curl under furs. A few still watch the fire. The soft rhythm of breathing fills the air. The occasional snap of a log makes one or two stir, then settle again. It's peaceful, yet alive, a pulse of shared existence. Imagine yourself in their place. The darkness outside presses like an ocean, but here, light pushes back. The fire becomes both shield and storyteller. You wonder what they thought it was: spirit, tool, or creature? There's no definitive answer. The academic world remains divided over how early humans conceptualized fire. as a gift stolen from the gods, as later myths suggest, or simply as a natural ally discovered by chance. Whatever they believed, their nightly rituals around the hearth turned fear into fascination. The smoke drifts lazily toward the ceiling, curling into patterns that fade into the rock's shadowed vault. It smells rich pine, fat, and resin. Each log releases its own scent. Those smells would have told the prehistoric sleeper everything they needed to know: how hot the fire was, how long until dawn, whether the smoke would choke or cradle them through the night. You pull a fur tighter around your shoulders, feeling the fire's uneven heat. Sometimes it's too hot on one side, too cold on the other, so you turn, slowly, like meat roasting evenly over a spit. They must have done the same, instinctively adjusting their position, learning to balance warmth without burning. These little dances with temperature probably shaped how humans tolerate heat even today. Fire wasn't only for comfort, it guarded against predators. The light itself became a boundary. Wolves might lurk at the mouth of the cave, eyes catching red reflections from the flames, unwilling to cross that line. That primal security, the glow keeping death at bay, must have soaked into the mind, making it easier to close your eyes, to trust sleep. But there's another layer, subtler and more mysterious. Some researchers suggest that long nights around the fire changed the way humans thought. Imagine thousands of winters like this. People gathering, staring into the light, speaking in low tones, inventing language itself. The repetition of flames could have trained memory. The quiet could have nurtured storytelling. You're not just looking at a fireplace, you're watching civilization flicker into being. The heat grows softer now. The coals pulse under a thin veil of ash. Someone pokes at them with a stick, stirring a short-lived flare. The orange reflects in a child's half-closed eyes before fading again. The moment is fleeting but eternal, the way light kisses darkness before surrendering. And here's something curious. Studies of soot layers inside ancient caves reveal patterns of smoke distribution that hint at deliberate ventilation. People arranged fires so that air flowed naturally out while heat stayed in. They didn't know the physics, but they knew the feeling. Even without science, they perfected thermal comfort centuries before architecture gave it a name. It's easy to romanticize these nights, but think of the reality too. The smoke made their eyes water. The air was thick, heavy. They coughed, wiped soot from their faces. Yet even discomfort became part of the lullaby. The body learned to relax into imperfection. Perhaps that's what real rest means, accepting that comfort is always slightly uneven, slightly smoky. You imagine yourself lying back now, gazing at the fire's last pulse. Its glow softens your eyelids, warming your cheeks. The darkness behind your eyes flickers red for a moment longer, then cools to grey. You're half in the modern world, half in theirs. Every time you dim your bedside lamp, every time you close your laptop and stare at the afterglow, you're reenacting the same ancient ritual. Light fades, mind follows, sleep takes over. And so, as the coals dim to embers, and the walls lose their colour, you feel the peace that must have filled those prehistoric hearts. The storm may rage outside, snow piling high, winds screaming through the trees, but inside, the fire hums its final tune. The earth's first nightlight burns low, and you drift toward the same timeless slumber that once kept the human race alive. The fire's glow dwindles into a dull red, and you sense the temperature dip, a reminder that, even here, the night rules. Someone stirs to add another log, but before they do, you notice the way everybody curls instinctively tighter, pulling furs and hides close. Warmth in this world isn't a luxury, it's a strategy. You reach down and feel the ground beneath the bedding, layers upon layers of carefully arranged material. At first glance, it looks like a mess of fur and grass, but it's a masterpiece of survival design. According to findings from several cave sites in South Africa and France, early humans layered dry grass, moss, and animal skins to create primitive mattresses. Beneath the furs, they sometimes added aromatic plants, wild mint or camphor to repel insects and sweeten the air. Not bad for a people who didn't even have soap. You kneel closer, brushing your hand across the surface. It's springy, faintly oily from repeated use, and surprisingly warm. The hides above it, thick mammoth skin, reindeer pelts, maybe even bear skin, carry a musky, animal scent that would make any modern camper wrinkle their nose. But for them, that smell meant life. The heavier the fur, the safer the night. Archaeological evidence shows that these hides were stitched crudely with bone needles, each piece overlapping like shingles to trap heat. The result was a layered cocoon that could endure winters brutal enough to turn breath into crystals. You sink down onto the bedding, feeling how it molds beneath you. The combination of fur and moss gives a natural cushioning effect, soft yet stable. It's easy to see how the body would relax into this arrangement, the joints supported by uneven but forgiving surfaces. There's no uniformity, but there is comfort, the kind that feels alive. An unexpected finding from some Ice Age sites hints at an added flourish. Early people may have warmed stones in the fire and tucked them beneath their bedding before sleep. Imagine it, small pockets of heat radiating upward through the night. The first prehistoric version of a hot water bottle. It's a detail both ingenious and strangely intimate. They didn't just survive the cold, they understood warmth as something to be created, shared, and preserved. Most researchers agree that sleeping materials varied by region. In colder zones like modern-day France or Ukraine, mammoth and woolly rhinoceros hides dominated. In milder climates, woven grasses and bark mats were enough. But the intention was always the same: to transform wild material into a comfort zone. And there's something beautifully human about that impulse. The refusal to lie directly on cold ground when imagination could make it softer. You look around at the sleeping figures now. Each body is wrapped in its own cocoon of hides, but they're pressed close enough for shared heat. The air smells of leather, smoke, and faint sweat. You imagine the rhythm of breathing, the rise and fall of chests in the dark. Group warmth is not just physics, it's intimacy written into muscle memory. Modern thermodynamics calls it convective sharing. Your ancestors called it family. No one is entirely sure how they decided who slept where. Some scientists suggest that positions were based on kinship or skill, hunters near entrances, elders near the fire. Others think it was more instinctual. The ones most vulnerable at the center, the strong forming a ring of protection. Whatever the case, the system worked. Even in the harshest winters, their tiny worlds of warmth endured. Curiously enough, evidence of these bedding layers, compressed grass preserved under ash, suggests that families refreshed them regularly, burning old material to keep insects away. It's an early form of hygiene that rivals modern logic. Picture that: someone sweeping out a sleeping area 40,000 years ago, tidying before bed. Civilization begins not with kings or cities, but with someone deciding to clean where they sleep. The more you think about it, the more remarkable it feels. Sleep wasn't just rest, it was design. These prehistoric people engineered their nights to feel secure, familiar, even pleasant. The smell of smoke, the weight of fur, the creak of drying hide, each sensation was part of the lullaby. Their version of thread count wasn't Egyptian cotton, it was thickness of mammoth skin and the number of bodies beside you. You shift slightly, hearing the muffled crinkle of dry grass. It gives off a faint sweetness, earthy and green, even in the frozen dark. The texture under your fingers feels almost like hair, coarse yet soft. It reminds you how adaptable humans are, turning discomfort into ritual, hardship into habit. We think of prehistoric life as crude, but here in the flickering firelight, it feels almost tender. And there's one more curious thought. Maybe, just maybe, those ancient sleepers had dreams influenced by their environment. The warmth, the scent, the low murmur of the clan. Some cognitive scientists speculate that sleep surrounded by natural materials might have deepened rest, synchronizing body temperature with surroundings. It's a theory still unfolding, but it hints that the best sleep, might not come from a mattress at all, but from the perfect balance between body and earth. You lie back and close your eyes for a moment. The pelts press against your skin, the fire's warmth reaches your cheeks, and you hear only the slow rhythm of dripping water. This world is quiet, purposeful, patient. It doesn't ask you to conquer it, only to adapt. Somewhere outside, a gust of wind pushes snow against the entrance, but you hardly notice. You're surrounded by soft furs, by the scent of pine resin and animal musk, by the sound of steady breathing. It's the oldest kind of comfort, the one that comes from knowing you're not alone, that the cold can rage all it wants but never touch you here. And so, wrapped in the handiwork of hands long gone, you drift towards sleep again. Beneath your body lies not just bedding, but history itself, layered and warm, whispering that even in the harshest winters, humans always found a way to dream. The embers glow softly, reflecting in a dozen half-closed eyes. Around you, the clan begins to settle into its nightly rhythm, the quiet choreography of bodies arranging themselves for warmth. It's not random. There's an order to it, one that's been rehearsed for generations. You watch as pairs curl together, children tucked between adults, shoulders pressed, legs intertwined beneath furs so thick they rise and fall like breathing hills. The fire burns low at the center, and everyone drifts closer until it feels as though the entire group breathes as one organism. What's fascinating is how efficient this closeness truly was. According to anthropological studies of traditional Arctic and steppe communities, shared body heat could raise nighttime temperatures by several degrees, enough to make the difference between sleep and frostbite. The prehistoric family likely discovered that without knowing any numbers at all, they learned by survival. If you lie too far from the others, you freeze. Stay near, and the night passes gently. The social design of sleep was as vital as any tool or weapon. Most researchers believe that this nightly circle around the fire built the foundation of early human empathy. It's in those quiet hours, half asleep, half aware, that the brain learns trust. You can hear another's breathing, the soft sigh when a child turns, the subtle reassurance that you are not alone in the dark. The cave smells of humanity itself: smoke, sweat, fur, and the faint sweetness of moss bedding. Yet the air isn't unpleasant. It's thick with life. A mother hums quietly to her child, a deep, rhythmic sound, almost indistinguishable from the flicker of the fire. You can imagine that sound rippling through generations, shaping the first language of care long before words like love existed. Somewhere behind the circle, a hunter shifts. His hand rests near a flint spear just in case. Even in sleep, he listens. The faintest crunch of snow outside might wake him. This was the balance they lived in: deep rest paired with constant readiness. Experts today would call it polyphasic sleep, short cycles tuned to alertness. Back then, it was instinct. A group this exposed couldn't afford the luxury of oblivion. Curiously, cave soot analysis has revealed distinct sleeping zones near ancient hearths, evidence of multiple fires burning simultaneously in large shelters. Each fire, each circle, likely belonged to a family unit within a tribe. Picture that: a cavern filled with several glowing islands of light, each ringed by its own small universe of warmth and trust. It must have looked like a constellation turned upside down, stars burning on the floor instead of the sky. There's an unexpected note found in certain sites: the presence of ochre stains near bedding areas. Some archaeologists interpret this as decoration, others as symbolic protection. The idea is that red ochre, a pigment resembling blood, represented life force or luck. Smearing it around sleeping areas might have been a way to seal safety, to keep spirits or disease at bay. Nobody can say for sure. The evidence refuses to settle the question. But you can imagine the comfort of that ritual, painting the earth to feel guarded by it. You watch the group's fire shrink to embers again. Someone yawns, a low, rasping sound, and laughter flickers briefly. Soft but genuine. Even in the Stone Age, people laughed before bed. Maybe they teased each other about who snored, or who burned the last piece of meat. Humor, it seems, is older than civilization. It warms the mind the way fire warms the body. In the dim light, you can just make out the outlines of faces. Foreheads resting against arms, lashes glinting in the orange glow. Their peace feels contagious. The mind, lulled by rhythmic breathing and flicker light, begins to soften its grip on fear. It's in moments like this that human bonding deepened not through speech or planning, but through shared stillness. Modern psychologists talk about co-regulation, the way bodies synchronize heartbeat and breath. These cave sleepers discovered it long before we named it. One man, older, murmurs something to the group, a soft grunt that might be a reminder or a blessing. Perhaps he's the firekeeper, the one whose duty it is to wake if the flames dim too low. Archaeological layers sometimes show clusters of ash arranged deliberately to restart coals at dawn. That task required vigilance and trust. The firekeeper was both guardian and lullaby, ensuring that warmth greeted the tribe when morning came. Imagine him now, blinking slowly, poking the embers with a charred stick, feeding just enough fuel to keep the glow alive. The orange light flares briefly, illuminating sleeping faces before fading again. That balance between rest and alertness might be the most ancient human skill of all. As you lie there, you can almost feel the subtle warmth radiating from others. Your shoulder touches someone's arm, their breath mingling with yours. The air vibrates faintly with shared heat. In that darkness, individuality fades. You become part of the group's heartbeat. Every inhale feels communal, every exhale protective. Outside, wind howls, frustrated. Snow clogs the entrance, muting all sound. Inside, time melts. There's no night or morning, only firelight and slumber, breath and warmth. Somewhere near the wall, a child's small hand grips a parent's fur sleeve. A tiny gesture, but one that has echoed through every generation since. The physical closeness of these nights shaped the human psyche more than we realize. When comfort depends on others, compassion becomes survival. The ability to soothe, to stay near, to share warmth, those aren't luxuries. They're evolutionary triumphs. It's entirely possible that empathy itself was born beside these fires, inside caves like this one, where a good night's sleep depended on mutual trust. So you settle in among them, feeling the pulse of shared existence. The flames shrink to a faint red shimmer, the smell of smoke thickens, and silence deepens. You close your eyes and listen. Dozens of heartbeats hum quietly in unison, as if the whole group dreams together. The air seems to glow, heavy with heat and breath and history. And for the first time in this frozen world, you understand what it means to sleep safely, not alone, but surrounded by life. The night grows heavier, and sound takes on new weight. You notice it first in the fire's quiet, the crisp pop of sap inside a log, the sigh as smoke curls toward the roof. Then, beyond that, the subtle chorus of the cave. Every drop of water becomes a note, every draught a whisper. The darkness hums with texture, and though your eyes can barely see, your ears bloom open. This is what prehistoric people heard as they drifted to sleep, the deep music of the earth. You sit perfectly still. At first, the cave seems silent. Then, faint layers begin to reveal themselves. The crackle of burning wood, the soft rustle of furs shifting, the rhythmic breathing of those beside you. Farther away, water drips in slow intervals, each one echoing down the stone corridor like a clock with no hands. Beyond the cave mouth, the wind moans through the trees, rising and falling in long, hollow waves. This symphony of small noises would have been the soundtrack of every winter night. Archaeological evidence from known Ice Age dwellings shows that the acoustics of caves weren't accidental. Sound carried differently in these stone chambers, amplifying low frequencies and softening sharp ones. It created a warm, rounded resonance that soothed the mind rather than startling it. Some researchers even suggest that humans chose specific sleeping spots within caves for their gentle echo patterns. They didn't understand decibels or frequencies, but they knew how to listen. It's easy to imagine the comfort that came from those sounds. The faint dripping overhead signaled that snow was melting somewhere, that life still moved. The fire's popping meant warmth continued. Even the occasional distant howl of wolves could be reassuring, proof that danger stayed outside. The rhythm of familiar sounds created what modern sleep scientists might call acoustic safety. The mind relaxes only when the environment feels predictable, and in this stone world, pattern was everything. You lean closer to the fire, watching the smoke shift like slow breath. The air is dense, warm, fragrant with pine resin. Each inhalation feels like a connection to the people who once lived here. Imagine them listening too. A child nestled against a parent's chest, tracing each sound until it fades. Their brains tuned to nature's metronome, falling asleep to repetition and resonance. Curiously, traces of musical activity appear in the archaeological record near some of these sleeping caves. Flutes made from bird bones, fragments of hollowed ivory, even scraped stones that produce tone. It's possible that before sleep, families played soft melodies to the rhythm of the dripping cave. An odd little discovery like that suggests humans might have found peace not only in silence but in gentle sound. What began as a lullaby became one of the oldest languages in existence. The idea that music and sleep share a birthplace here is almost poetic. When the mind quiets, rhythm fills the space. Perhaps that is why even today people play rain sounds or crackling fire recordings to rest. Our ancestors taught us the formula long ago: warmth, repetition, and familiarity. You shift slightly, feeling the fur beneath you adjust. The sound it makes soft, brushing, layered is another note in the dark symphony. Someone nearby exhales sharply, then rolls over. The entire chamber changes pitch for a moment as a new rhythm takes hold. Sleep, for these people, wasn't a static act. It was fluid, moving with breath, with sound, with the life of the group. Outside, the wind gusts again, funneling through cracks at the cave entrance. The sound deepens into a low whistle that seems almost alive. The walls catch it, reshape it, turn it into harmony. It's easy to understand why some early humans may have believed spirits lived within these stones. When the wind spoke, they listened. Whether those whispers brought comfort or caution, no one can be sure. Theories about spiritual acoustics vary, but many archaeologists agree that caves shaped early imagination as much through sound as through image. You close your eyes and let those sounds layer around you. The fire hums. The dripping continues. The wind sighs again, followed by silence so deep it feels physical. The stone itself seems to hold its breath. You begin to understand why these people slept so well despite the cold. The sounds reminded them they were enclosed, protected, part of something vast but intimate. In that near silence, you hear your own heartbeat join the pattern. The rhythm synchronizes with the dripping water. You inhale smoke and exhale calm. Sleep doesn't come suddenly here. It slides over you slowly, like a tide. Sometimes, when storms were too strong, the cave's acoustics must have changed wind, roaring like an ocean. The fire sputtering, the group huddled tighter. Those nights, the balance between fear and comfort was razor thin. Yet even then, there was music. The wind played the entrance, the fire played the floor, and the human body provided the drumbeat. Modern sound engineers who study ancient caves have noticed something remarkable. Certain chambers resonate almost perfectly with frequencies of the human voice. In other words, when people sang or spoke softly, the cave itself seemed to respond, amplifying warmth while swallowing harsh tones. It's tempting to imagine a prehistoric lullaby echoing through these very walls, wrapping the sleepers in something more than sound, a gentle, vibrating embrace from the earth itself. As you listen now, surrounded by the same natural orchestra, it feels timeless. The noises are simple yet infinite. They connect you backward, through all the generations that ever slept under rock and firelight. Each sound, each crack, drip, sigh, is both ancient and present, both theirs and yours. And so you lie still, wrapped in fur, breathing in rhythm with the world. The cave's music swells and fades, its tempo slowing until even your thoughts dissolve into it. Outside, snow keeps falling, but inside, the oldest lullaby in history continues to play, coaxing you towards sleep. By morning, the storm has softened into a whisper. A faint grey light seeps through the narrow cave entrance, revealing outlines of sleeping figures under firs. The air smells of ash and animal hide, tinged with something rich and fatty from the last meal. You shift slightly, feeling muscles ache in the best possible way. This is the kind of exhaustion that only comes from surviving a day in the Ice Age. You imagine what it must have been like to live that rhythm every day. Each sunrise brought hunger and cold, and each evening brought the miracle of rest. Most experts agree that prehistoric people expended nearly twice as much daily energy as modern humans. Hunting and gathering were not hobbies. They were the only currency of existence. Every limb, every muscle worked constantly. No gym, no training routine, just the constant push of necessity. The reward for that effort was sleep so deep it might as well have been sacred. When the clan returned from the frozen plains, their bellies full of mammoth fat or roasted deer, their bodies ready to collapse, rest came easily. It was not something chased with herbal teas or meditation apps. It simply arrived. The line between waking and dreaming blurred in the warmth of the cave. You can almost hear it, the low murmur of conversation as the hunters share stories of the day's chase, the crackle of fire as fat drips from roasting meat, the clinking of stone tools as someone sharpens a blade for tomorrow. And then, slowly, quiet takes over. One by one, the exhausted bodies surrender to sleep. Evidence from preserved bones suggests that prehistoric people were remarkably strong, yet also compact in frame. The reason lies partly in lifestyle. Carrying heavy carcasses, enduring cold, and moving constantly through snow-built endurance, unmatched by modern standards. Their sleep, therefore, was restorative in the truest sense. When you use every fiber of your body, the body demands full repair. It is believed that the composition of their diet helped too. Animal fat and protein were abundant, but so were certain roots and berries collected in the milder months and stored for winter. That balance provided steady energy and warmth, keeping the body insulated. Curiously, chemical analysis of ancient bones shows that these diets produced higher levels of natural melatonin in darker months, possibly improving their sleep cycles. Imagine that, nature providing its own night medicine long before pharmacology existed. You stretch in your bedding, feeling the stiffness fade. The warmth from the fire still lingers, trapped in the hides. A thin trail of smoke rises toward the ceiling, and through it, the light of morning turns the air silver. A woman nearby stirs and tosses a few small bones into the embers. The fat pops, releasing a smell that is both savory and comforting. This is breakfast in its earliest form. One fascinating discovery at ancient campsites is the presence of burnt marrow bones near sleeping areas. It appears that before lying down for the night, people would crack open bones and warm the marrow over the fire. They likely ate it as a final meal, but some evidence suggests they left bits of marrow smouldering slowly through the night, releasing steady heat. It was both nourishment and warmth, an ingenious dual purpose born of necessity. As you breathe in that lingering scent, you can understand why they might have slept better than we do. There was no mental clutter, no glowing screens or endless lists. Their minds quieted when the day ended because survival itself had been the day's entire focus. When you live inside elemental simplicity, rest becomes the only logical conclusion. But even within that simplicity, there was ritual. Before sleep, someone always checked the entrance, brushing away snow or debris. Another ensured that embers would last until dawn. The group didn't just collapse into rest, they created conditions for safety first. It's possible that those small acts of preparation gave the mind permission to let go. Security breeds relaxation. That truth has not changed in 40,000 years. Outside, the wind rises briefly, and you picture the landscape they faced. White plains stretching endlessly, frozen rivers, skeletal trees groaning under frost. The cold would have felt alive, pressing against the world like an animal trying to get in. And yet, inside the cave, warmth held steady. The bodies, the fire, the shared breath created a microclimate of peace amid chaos. There is another curious observation from modern studies of indigenous groups who live without artificial light. They tend to experience segmented sleep, two long phases separated by a brief waking period in the middle of the night. During that quiet hour, people often speak softly, think, or simply watch the fire. Perhaps our prehistoric ancestors did the same. Maybe they woke for a few minutes each night, looked at the glowing coals, listened to the snow outside, and then drifted back into dreams. It is an oddly comforting thought that even in a world so raw, people found time to be still, to lie between exhaustion and renewal, aware yet peaceful. The body knew exactly what it needed, and nature provided the rhythm. You shift again, eyes half open. Someone near you coughs gently. Another rolls over, pulling their hide tighter. The air is full of tiny, intimate sounds. In a few minutes, the day will begin, and with it the endless tasks of survival. But right now, in this quiet, everything is perfect. The fire gives a small sigh as wood settles into ash. You realize that the prehistoric night was not silent at all, but perfectly tuned. Each sound, each breath, each pulse of warmth wove into a pattern of rest. The kind of deep, unbroken sleep that today feels like a luxury was once the natural state of being. As dawn slowly pushes into the cave, your eyelids grow heavier again. The body, remembering its ancient design, wants to drift back to the rhythm of a world that never rushed. You exhale and let the moment hold you. The day can wait. For now, you share in the most timeless ritual of all, the sleep of those who have earned it. The day fades again into grey twilight, and the cycle begins anew. Shadows lengthen on the cave walls as the sun disappears behind the ridge. You watch as the light slowly cools from silver to blue, then to the faint, amber reflection of the fire. In this ancient world, the rhythm of sleep depends not on clocks or alarms, but on the movement of the sky. The body listens to light as though it were music, and the moon, in all her moods, is the silent conductor. You step closer to the entrance. The snow outside glows faintly under the rising moon. It is bright enough to see by, but soft enough to feel unreal, like walking inside a dream. The prehistoric world had no artificial light, no torches except the fire carried from the hearth. For early humans, night was a living thing, and the moon was its only face. Scientists today know that lunar light affects sleep patterns even now, yet for those who lived entirely by its presence, the influence was far stronger. When the moon rose full, the world brightened, and the cave seemed to breathe with pale light. People may have woken easily, stirred by the sudden glow. The shadows on the walls shifted, and the mind filled with images. On darker nights, when clouds swallowed the moon, sleep deepened into something more absolute. There is evidence that ancient people synchronized their hunting and resting cycles with the lunar phases, using moonlight for travel and full darkness for stillness. They were, quite literally, tuned to the sky. Most researchers agree that prehistoric humans experienced a more natural circadian rhythm than we do today. Without artificial light, melatonin rose as soon as twilight fell. The fire's glow provided enough warmth and visibility to prepare food and talk, but not enough to delay rest. The body's chemistry obeyed the cosmos. It must have been like living in harmony with a great invisible clock that never faltered. You step back inside, feeling the change as soon as you leave the moonlight. The cave absorbs sound again, absorbs time itself. Someone near the fire tosses in a bundle of dry moss. It flares briefly, throwing gold light across the walls, before sinking into a steady burn. Shadows flicker and retreat. The people inside adjust instinctively. gathering closer, eyes reflecting the alternating gold and grey of fire and moon. There is something mesmerizing about how light behaves here. It dances with the walls, softens faces, blurs edges. The human mind, half awake, begins to see patterns. That is how dreams might have started, not in deep sleep but in this twilight state, where flame and moon weave together. Some cognitive scientists suggest that our earliest imaginations were shaped by the way our eyes and brains adapted to dim, shifting light. The nervous system relaxed, and thought began to wander inward. Outside, an owl calls once, its echo stretched and distorted by the cave's hollow. The sound lingers in the air. A child stirs, then settles again, lulled by the repetition. For people who lived here, every night carried these cues. The owl's call, the rising mist, the cooling of the air, all signaled the same truth. It was time to let the world move on without them for a few hours. There is a curious detail observed in certain cave sites. Traces of soot on ceilings suggest that early humans adjusted their fires with remarkable care. They knew how to dim flames deliberately, burning smaller embers at night to reduce both smoke and glare. The goal was a soft, steady glow that would not disturb sleep but would keep predators away. This delicate balance between light and dark shows a deep understanding of how environment affects rest. Even without language for it, they had mastered the psychology of calm. You picture it now, the cave quiet, fire a faint red shimmer, the moonlight brushing the entrance. Each person in the group positioned like planets around a sun, orbiting the warmth. The pale light moves across sleeping faces, tracing the curve of a cheek, the rise of a shoulder under fur. There is beauty in this balance of shadow and silver. It feels ancient and familiar at once. Modern researchers continue to puzzle over whether early humans dreamed differently than we do. Perhaps their dreams were brighter, filled with landscapes they knew intimately. Maybe the moon, with its rhythm of waxing and waning, found its way into their subconscious, shaping myths that would later become stories of gods and monsters. The evidence cannot tell us, but imagination can. You tilt your head back, eyes half closed, watching the play of reflection on the cave ceiling. Tiny sparkles of moisture glint like constellations. Somewhere in the distance, the real stars shimmer through the night sky. The prehistoric sleeper didn't separate heaven from home. They existed under the same ceiling, both made of stone and light. In this moment, surrounded by silence and glow, you understand how perfectly their lives aligned with the cosmos. When the sun rose, they worked. When it fell, they rested. The moon guided their intuition, their migrations, even their fertility cycles. Sleep was not rebellion against darkness, but acceptance of it. They didn't fight the night. They belonged to it. A soft wind enters through the narrow opening, brushing against your face. The air feels different now, cooler but cleaner. It carries the scent of snow and pine. The fire stirs faintly in response, as if breathing along with the world outside. You wrap a fur around your shoulders and sit down again, feeling your heartbeat slow. The moonlight continues to travel across the cave floor, pale and deliberate. It touches the fire, catches the glint of bone tools, then fades toward the back wall. You follow it with your eyes until it vanishes. This, perhaps, was the ancient rhythm of peace, the steady exchange of light, from moon to flame, to darkness again, the mind yielding to that pattern without question. You close your eyes, and the flicker of light becomes a pulse behind your eyelids. It feels natural, gentle, eternal. The body remembers how to obey the night. The darkness gathers you in, and sleep comes not as a surrender but as an invitation. The night is calm, almost sweet. A faint breeze sneaks through the cave entrance, carrying with it the scent of pine needles and cold stone. The fire glows low, and beside it, a line of tiny lamps flicker quietly. These are not candles, not yet, but shallow bowls carved from stone, each filled with animal fat and a twist of moss or dried fiber that burns with a steady golden light. You lean closer to one and catch the scent of smoke mixed with something else. something herbal and pleasant. The air itself seems to hum with it. Those little lamps were among the earliest tools of comfort. Archaeologists have found them in Ice Age caves, often near sleeping areas, coated with black residue from ancient flames. They served many purposes: a way to chase the dark, a method to keep insects away, and sometimes a vessel for scent. The burning fat of reindeer or seal gave off a thick but surprisingly gentle aroma. Combined with herbs or bark resin, it transformed a damp cave into something almost luxurious. Most historians agree that prehistoric people used whatever was available to shape their nights. Pine resin, juniper, crushed sage, even dried dung from grazing animals, each material burned differently, producing smoke that had meaning. Some fumes cleansed the air, others carried spiritual weight. It was a kind of early chemistry, born from observation rather than science. They knew which smells made breathing easier, which kept the mind calm, and which ones should never fill the room again. You inhale softly. The smoke is heavier near the ceiling, but at ground level it feels soothing, like warm fabric against your face. A woman near the fire adds another pinch of herbs, and the scent changes instantly. It is sharper now, cleaner, almost like cedar and citrus. You can imagine how comforting that must have been after a day of blood, mud, and cold air. For a few hours, the cave smells like safety. Curiously, traces of aromatic plant residues have been found embedded in prehistoric hearths. Some scientists believe that these were not accidental. The people who lived here may have learned to use smoke deliberately, both as insect repellent and as relaxation. Modern aromatherapy owes more to ancient intuition than we realize. The rhythmic repetition of breathing warm, fragrant air before sleep could have slowed the heartbeat, relaxed muscles, and encouraged rest. The soft light from the fat lamps shimmers across the walls, pooling in gentle gold circles. The effect is magical, almost sacred. Each lamp mirrors the moonlight outside, but smaller, more intimate. There is something deeply human in that symmetry, the desire to capture the beauty of the night and hold it close. Some experts think these small flames even inspired the earliest cave paintings, their flickering glow helping artists imagine movement and spirit in the shapes they drew. Someone shifts beside you, brushing against a skin pouch filled with herbs. It spills slightly, and the scent of crushed mint fills the air. Mint was known to grow even in glacial periods, hardy and stubborn. Its aroma cuts through the heaviness of the cave. It feels fresh, alive. You smile at the thought that, thousands of years ago, a person might have crushed those same leaves simply to feel awake for a moment before sleep. An intriguing hypothesis among researchers suggests that the combination of heat, scent, and smoke in enclosed spaces may have affected consciousness. Perhaps mild intoxication came from inhaling plant compounds or even carbon-rich air. Dreams might have grown more vivid, more mythic. The mind, half dreaming by firelight, may have been the birthplace of stories about gods, animals, and spirits. The idea remains uncertain, yet it fits the sensory reality of this world. You glance at the fire again. It's smaller now, tended carefully so it won't smoke too much. The lamps take over the job of lighting. They make everything gentler, softer. The air shimmers faintly, a golden haze that seems to thicken near the ceiling. The people around you have stopped talking altogether. Their faces are peaceful, eyes half closed, movements slow. The scent, the warmth, the glow together, they create a trance, a wordless permission to rest. In the corner, someone hums quietly. It's not a song. Not exactly, just a pattern of breath and tone. Perhaps the sound helps synchronize the group, a final reminder of safety. Early humans may have used this sort of humming as a signal. All is well, the night is ours. Even now, the low vibration feels comforting. You find yourself breathing in time with it. As the hum fades, you notice a small flicker from one of the lamps. The wick has burned down, and a faint curl of black smoke rises into the air. It carries the last bit of scent from whatever was burning. Maybe it was pine, maybe dried berries. The The smell lingers, earthy and sweet. Then it's gone. The cave exhales. Somewhere near the entrance, a soft hiss of wind threads through the rocks. The sound blends perfectly with the crackle of the fire, the dripping of water, and the slow breathing of the sleepers. It's all so balanced, so precise, that you realize this environment was never silent or chaotic. It was tuned like an instrument. Every element served a function. Every scent, every sound, every flicker of light worked together to teach the body what peace feels like. You close your eyes. The air is warm and faintly smoky, carrying a perfume that feels timeless. There is no rush, no thought of morning. The scent of herbs clings to your skin, and you imagine that somewhere deep in memory, every human still carries this same association. The smell of smoke means safety. The glow of flame means rest. For a moment you see it from outside. A faint glow tucked in the side of a mountain, hidden from the wind, smoke rising gently into the night. Inside, a handful of people asleep beside their fire, surrounded by scent and warmth. No technology, no noise, no rush, just pure, earned stillness. The smoke curls once more before fading into the dark. It leaves a silence that feels like peace itself. You breathe in deeply, feeling the warmth settle into your chest. And for a long while you stay that way, suspended between scent and sleep, between the ancient world and the one that still dreams of it. The cave's glow flickers softly against your closed eyes. You can still feel the warmth of the fire, but the air carries a cooler undercurrent now. A shift in the wind makes the entrance sigh. Somewhere in the far distance, a wolf calls. It is long, rising, and low enough to vibrate through the floor. You are not alone in the night. No one ever truly was. Every clan knew that safety depended not only on walls of stone but on watchful hearts. Someone always stayed half awake, listening to the wilderness breathe. It might have been the eldest hunter, or perhaps a young one eager to prove himself. Sometimes two took turns, their drowsy minds hovering between vigilance and dream. This was not paranoia. It was survival made ritual. Archaeological evidence of burnt charcoal trails leading toward cave entrances suggests that the fire was not left unguarded. Small piles of embers often appear in shallow pits near openings, as though someone kept a smaller flame alive there to deter animals. Most researchers believe this was the watchfire, tended throughout the night. Its glow cast just enough light to reveal movement outside without drawing predators in. You crawl a little closer to the entrance. The air there feels sharper, colder. Beyond the narrow gap, the snow reflects a faint silvery glow from the waning moon. You can see the blurred shapes of trees swaying under frost. A shadow moves briefly, quick and low, then vanishes into the white. Maybe a fox, maybe something larger. You stay still. The silence that follows is deeper than comfort. It is focus. Imagine the tension that Watcher must have felt. Every rustle of leaves, every crack of ice a possible danger. The human ear became a finely tuned instrument, capable of sorting sounds even in darkness. Those who guarded the entrance weren't just sentinels. They were part of the night's architecture. Their alertness allowed the rest of the group to surrender fully to sleep. That fragile trust might be humanity's oldest bond. There's a curious finding from several Upper Paleolithic sites. Clusters of footprints near cave mouths that show people pacing back and forth during the night. The prints are often from the same individuals, overlapping in loops. It seems they walked quietly, keeping circulation going, staying awake. The simple act of movement kept both body and mind from freezing. Even exhaustion had to wait its turn. You lean against the wall near the entrance and feel the faint hum of the wind through the stone. It sounds almost like a voice. Maybe that's why early people thought spirits lived outside, or that the mountains themselves could whisper warnings. The natural sounds of weather became teachers. Knowing when to wake, when to rest, when to hide, all depended on listening. Sometimes, when the wind was strong enough, they used it. Hunters placed bones or sticks at the edge of the entrance so that the gusts would rattle them. It was the first alarm system, delicate and brilliant. A sudden clatter meant movement outside. The watcher would rouse the others, and the clan would be ready before danger reached them. Archaeologists have found such bone fragments arranged in patterns that make sense only if you imagine them shaking like wind chimes. Inside, the sleepers shift softly. The fire pops once, brightening the cave just enough for you to glimpse their faces. Peaceful, unaware, perfectly still. The warmth from their bodies mixes with the scent of burned pine, creating a fragile bubble of life inside an endless cold. You realize that this balance between danger and calm defined their nights. The safety of the many depended on the wakefulness of one. The watcher's role must have been lonely, yet strangely serene. To sit by the entrance, wrapped in fur, gazing into darkness, waiting for something that might never come. The mind, half numb from cold, begins to wander. Perhaps that solitude was also a kind of meditation. The rhythm of the wind, the slow pulse of the fire, the sound of breathing behind it could lull even a guardian into a dreamlike state. Researchers have suggested that early humans may have alternated light sleep with these vigil periods, creating a shared schedule of rest that rotated through the group. It kept everyone partly refreshed, partly alert. The result was a collective form of awareness, one that ensured no hour passed without someone awake. This pattern might be why humans today can wake so easily at sudden noises. The reflex has been honed for tens of thousands of years. You glance back at the group again. Their shapes blend together, hidden beneath layers of fur. It's almost impossible to tell where one person ends and another begins. A small child moves slightly, pressing closer to an adult's warmth. That gesture alone carries the entire logic of the species. Protect, rest, trust, repeat. Outside, another howl echoes. This time it is closer, but not threatening. The wolves are moving across the frozen plain, chasing the same herds that feed you. Their cries are not warnings, but acknowledgements, part of the same great rhythm. The watcher doesn't reach for a weapon. He only listens until the sound fades, satisfied that the danger is distant. When you return to the fire, the watcher's place feels different. The small embers near the entrance cast a gentler glow now. The cold lingers on your skin, but the warmth of the inner cave pulls you back in. You settle down again beside the others, feeling a quiet gratitude for that invisible sentinel who guarded your dreams. As your body relaxes, you think about how trust was built night after night in these caves. Trust in the one who watched. Trust in the walls that held. Trust in the fire that stayed alive even as snow piled high outside. That invisible faith might be the most ancient inheritance of all, still buried somewhere in every sleeping human heart. The cave returns to silence. The watcher stretches, eyes heavy now, and for a moment even he drifts between worlds, the line between awareness and rest dissolving. Outside, the night goes on, endless and cold, but inside the glow remains, steady and human. Morning drifts into the cave like a pale breath. The fire is only smoke now, its ashes still warm, and the scent of char lingers in the air. The clan stirs slowly, stretching under hides, blinking at the dim light creeping across the walls. Their faces are soft, not fearful, touched by a peace that comes from survival. Each one has slept, dreamed, and woken still alive. You notice how they move carefully, quietly, as though the dream world has not fully released them. For these people, dreams are not imaginary diversions. They are messages, glimpses of other realities that blend with the physical world. It is widely accepted among anthropologists that prehistoric communities viewed dreams as real experiences, not illusions. What happened in sleep mattered just as much as what occurred in daylight. The woman who tends the fire gathers ashes into a circle, whispering something under her breath. Perhaps it is gratitude for the warmth that carried them through the night. A man nearby rubs his eyes and begins to speak softly, recounting something he saw while asleep. His gestures are animated, tracing the shape of an animal in the air. Others listen, nodding slowly, their expressions curious but calm. They treat his words not as fantasy, but as report. This act, retelling the contents of dreams, was likely a ritual repeated every morning. It allowed the group to interpret their inner worlds collectively. One person might describe chasing a reindeer through snow, another falling into dark water, another flying above mountains. These weren't just stories, they were signs. Dreams might foretell weather, warn of danger, or bless a hunt. Early humans built entire cosmologies from what their minds conjured at rest. You can imagine it clearly now. The dreamers speaking by the fading fire, their voices low and rhythmic, their hands drawing invisible shapes in the air. The smoke curls upward, connecting their breath to the cave ceiling, to the unseen world beyond. Maybe they believed that dreams rose into that smoke and lingered there, waiting to return another night. An intriguing clue found in painted caves supports this idea. Some of the most vivid animal depictions appear in chambers where sleeping and dreaming likely took place. Scholars have long debated whether those paintings were created after dreams, as attempts to capture visions seen in sleep. It's possible the artists used the walls not only as decoration but as memory, the first human attempt to record the dreamscape. You close your eyes and try to imagine what they saw. In that flickering half-dark, shapes could easily shift into living things. The outline of a bison in shadow, a streak of red ochre glowing like fire. Perhaps their dreams and their surroundings blended until there was no clear border between imagination and stone. Modern neuroscience tells us that dreams serve the brain's need to process emotion, memory, and fear. But for these early people, dreaming was sacred dialogue. The hunter's vision of the mammoth might mean luck. The child's nightmare of water might warn of a thaw and flood. Every image had weight. The group interpreted these signs together, making decisions that shaped their survival. You think about how comforting that must have been to wake from a strange dream and find a circle of people ready to listen, to help you decipher it. The idea of solitude didn't exist here. Even the mind's most private theatre belonged to the community. Some experts believe that such rituals also reduced anxiety. Sharing dreams helped the group release fear and strengthen cohesion. It turned personal confusion into collective story. Each morning they rebuilt meaning together. Maybe that's why their nights, no matter how cold, ended with a kind of optimism. They had survived, yes, but they had also imagined. One peculiar discovery from a cave in northern Spain reveals traces of red pigment near hearths, as if people sprinkled color onto embers. The residue suggests a mixture of ochre and animal fat, producing sparks of crimson when burned. No one knows exactly why, but some think it was symbolic, perhaps a way to send dreams skyward as light. The interpretation is uncertain, but the image it paints feels deeply human. You open your eyes again. The group still sits together, listening to the last storyteller. His words flow softly, steady as the trickle of water down the cave wall. His voice carries through the chamber and fades. When he finishes, silence settles again, but it feels charged, meaningful. Everyone looks at the fire, their faces thoughtful. The night has spoken, and they have heard. The more you watch them, the more you realize that dreams gave shape to their waking world. The hunt, the weather, the birth of children, all these might have been influenced by what someone saw while asleep. In this way, the boundary between night and day was thin, fluid. Life itself was a cycle of vision and action, like breathing in and out. You stretch your legs, feeling the cool stone beneath your palms. The surface is rough but grounding. Maybe this is why prehistoric people slept so deeply. Their dreams were not distractions, but extensions of life itself. The body rested while the mind continued the day's work, hunting, fearing, loving in a softer form. The fire flares as someone stirs the ashes. The smoke twists into the air again, catching a shaft of pale sunlight from the entrance. It looks almost alive, like a messenger between realms. The dreamers rise one by one, gathering tools and hides. The day begins anew, built on the stories of the night. You sit for a moment longer, watching the last wisp of smoke drift upward. The cave grows quiet again, but you sense that even in silence it remembers. Every sigh, Every whispered dream lingers in the air, echoing softly, like the pulse of the earth itself continuing to dream long after its children wake. When twilight returns, the cave glows again with firelight. Shadows begin their slow dance along the stone walls, sliding over ancient carvings and stains of red ochre. The air hums faintly with smoke and the soft rhythm of hands grinding pigment. Someone near the fire lifts a flat stone and spreads color across its surface with a bit of animal fat, creating a paste that glistens like wet clay. Tonight, before sleep, the clan paints. In this world, art is not separate from survival. It is woven into it. The same hands that skin animals, that hunt, that build fires, also draw with astonishing delicacy. Most archaeologists agree that painting was not entertainment but ritual, a way to shape meaning in a place that often felt merciless. To paint the hunt might ensure its success. To trace the image of a mammoth might capture its strength. These gestures were acts of hope, and perhaps acts of gratitude too. You crouch beside one of the artists. The fire flickers across their face, turning the eyes gold. They hold a hollow bone dipped in pigment and blow gently against the wall, spraying a fine mist that leaves the outline of a hand. The mark is bright red, as vivid as blood. It looks startling against the grey rock, almost alive. The painter pauses, studying it as if waiting for the stone to breathe back. There are thousands of such handprints across Ice Age caves. Some are small, belonging to children. Others are large, bold, reaching high where only someone standing on another's shoulders could have placed them. Each print is a declaration. I was here. I existed. Even in a world of danger, people wanted to leave proof of their presence. The fire hisses, and the glow shifts again. The walls ripple with light, making the painted animals seem to move. A bison lowers its head, a horse gallops, a reindeer leaps across stone. This illusion is unintentional, yet breathtaking. Researchers studying these caves have suggested that the flicker of flame was part of the design. The movement of light made the art come alive, a performance each night before sleep. The act of watching might have calmed the mind, turning imagination into meditation. You glance at the group gathered near the painter. They watch silently, breathing slow. A child rests against their mother's arm, eyes wide. The fire's warmth touches their faces, while the images shift and shimmer above them. In a sense, this is their version of a bedtime story. Instead of words, there is light and shadow, paint and movement. An odd finding in one site shows small soot marks near painted figures, as if someone waved a torch deliberately back and forth. The gesture may have been intended to animate the drawings, a primitive form of storytelling. It might also have been spiritual, a way to invite the spirits of animals into the cave, to share their strength before the night's rest. No one truly knows, but the idea feels right. The smell of pigment fills the air. It is earthy, metallic, sharp with iron oxide and clay. Your tongue tastes it faintly as you breathe. The artist dips a finger into another mixture, this one black, made from crushed charcoal and animal fat. They draw lines connecting the shapes, linking animals into patterns that spiral across the wall. It is a language of motion and memory, one that speaks directly to the senses. Most researchers agree that painting at night had practical reasons too. Daylight rarely reached deep into caves, but firelight allowed control over shadows and intensity. The interplay between flame and pigment gave the images depth, almost texture. Watching these creations in motion could have prepared the mind for dreams, easing the transition between consciousness and imagination. You move your hand across the cool wall. The stone holds warmth from the fire only near its surface. Beneath, it is cold, eternal. The contrast between warmth and chill feels almost symbolic, as if the wall itself were a boundary between the living and the spirit world. Some experts think this idea shaped why they painted deep inside caves rather than at the entrance. The deeper chambers were closer to mystery, places where sound echoed differently and the air felt still, sacred. The painter finishes another line and sits back, breathing hard. The color glows wetly for a moment before darkening as it dries. The group murmurs softly, admiring the new figure. Then, one by one, they settle into their bedding again. The act of painting has quieted them, as though the ritual drained the day's remaining energy. You lie down and watch the fading reflections on the walls. The painted bison seems to drift slowly through the haze of smoke, its outline flickering like the edge of a dream. The rhythmic sound of the fire returns to dominance, steady and low. Someone coughs gently. Another person sighs. The night folds over the group like a thick blanket. Perhaps the reason they slept so well was that their minds were emptied of fear by creation. Making something beautiful out of dust and fat might have been the purest form of peace. It gave the illusion of control in a world that otherwise offered none. That sense of harmony between work and rest, between body and imagination, may have been the foundation of human resilience. As your eyes close, you picture yourself tracing a line of paint along the rock. Your breath mingles with the smell of pigment and smoke. The wall seems to pulse faintly, as if alive with the dreams of all who ever slept here. Outside, the wind hums through the valley. Inside, art and sleep blend together, each feeding the other, until the distinction between them disappears entirely. The fire burns softly tonight, its glow reaching the far corners of the chamber. The air feels unusually gentle, warmer than the night before. You notice the arrangement of the sleepers more clearly now. Children lie close to the center, wrapped in softest hides, while the elders rest along the outer curve near the walls where the air is cooler but still safe. Between them stretch the hunters and mothers, forming a protective circle around the young. It is not a rule written anywhere, but a rhythm everyone knows. Family in this world is not a matter of words or ceremony. It is a shape, a pattern repeated every night until it becomes as natural as breathing. Modern research on Ice Age dwellings suggests that extended families often slept together in large communal spaces. This closeness was practical, conserving warmth and offering defense, yet it also nurtured emotional bonds. To survive was to stay connected, physically and spiritually. You watch as one of the elders reaches toward a small child who stirs in sleep. Her wrinkled hand, calloused from years of work, rests gently on the child's shoulder. The movement is slow, tender, deliberate. The child relaxes instantly, sighing once before drifting back into stillness. That touch carries everything human: comfort, reassurance, continuity. In the half-light, you see how faces reflect the same calm expressions despite the hardships outside. The children's cheeks flush with warmth, their hair tangled but soft. The older ones murmur quietly before silence returns. It feels like the entire group breathes in unison. This simple harmony is what civilization will later name community. Archaeological studies of hearth arrangements suggest that families shared sleeping areas according to kinship and role. Elders often stayed near the fire, not for privilege, but to monitor its life through the night. Their fading strength found new purpose in watching over others. That subtle balance between usefulness and care reveals a truth we still recognize. Even in the harshest environments, belonging is a form of survival. The smell of smoke thickens again as someone adds a log. Sparks leap upward and fade, mirrored by a few sleepy blinks from children near the flame. They whisper softly to one another, their voices like ripples in a pond. The sound makes the air feel alive. Some scientists propose that such low murmurs during shared sleep may have been the earliest form of language training for young minds. In listening to half-dreamed conversations, children absorbed patterns of tone and rhythm long before formal speech existed. You imagine how it must have felt to grow up here. Each night a lesson in warmth, security, and rhythm. The lullabies of parents were not always sung. Sometimes they were gestures, breaths, or gentle taps against fur. Repetition itself was soothing. The heartbeats of those nearby became the first music a child would ever know. The social structure inside these caves shaped the roots of empathy. When people live this closely, every small sound matters. A sigh, a cough, A restless turn, each one draws response. One person shifts a blanket, another reaches to adjust a fur. Even in darkness, they attend to one another. That attentiveness trained generations to sense others' needs instinctively. Some psychologists today think this is where compassion began, in the quiet hours of shared sleep. You glance toward the elder again. Her eyes are open, reflecting faint orange light. She hums under her breath, a melody so soft it almost blends with the crackle of fire. The tune repeats without hurry, simple and low. Maybe it is a song from her own youth, a thread that connects decades of winters. Her hum carries across the group until even those already half asleep seem to breathe in rhythm with it. A curious discovery from one archaeological site reveals beads and carved bones found near bedding layers belonging to older women. It suggests that they kept small objects of memory close while sleeping, perhaps charms or tokens of children lost or grown. Objects of tenderness, worn smooth by fingers in the dark. These were not ornaments for display, but reminders of connection, tiny proofs of love in a world that could take everything else. The fire sighs again, settling lower. Someone near the entrance adjusts the hide curtain to block the chill. The gesture wakes a few others briefly, but they soon settle again. The group's formation holds steady, a living sculpture of protection. You can almost feel the warmth radiating through the shared space, thick and steady like a heartbeat that belongs to everyone at once. There is something profoundly human about this arrangement. The very shape of it, elders guarding the fire, parents in the middle, children in the heart, has echoed through all eras. The tents of nomads, the longhouses of early farmers, the small apartments of cities all mimic the same principle: safety through nearness. In this simple pattern, comfort finds its purest form. You let your gaze drift upward to the dark ceiling. Soot stains trace faint spirals where smoke has escaped for years. The air hums quietly, alive with the memory of voices and breathing. The scent of cooked meat lingers faintly, mixed with pine and ash. You close your eyes and imagine the weight of those layers of sound and smell pressing gently on your senses. Perhaps this closeness explains why they slept so deeply. Each heartbeat reinforced another, creating a chorus of reassurance. Even fear, that most primal companion, lost its edge when shared among many. The collective warmth and rhythm became a barrier stronger than any wall. The child stirs again, turning toward the elder's side. A small hand finds hers in the dark. She squeezes gently without a word. That touch, fragile and timeless, bridges generations. It reminds you that comfort does not come from walls or fire alone. It comes from proximity, from the shared promise that you are never alone in the dark. The fire glows a last time, steady and red, before dimming. The hum fades into silence. The circle of sleepers remains unbroken, a living symbol of connection. You close your eyes, feeling that same warmth reach across time. For a few quiet moments, it feels as though the entire human story rests beside you, breathing softly in the dark. Outside, the winter deepens beyond anything you have yet felt. Snow falls so heavily that it muffles the world, softening even the echo of wind. The air holds no scent, no movement, only white silence pressing against the mountain. Inside the cave, the fire burns brighter than usual, its glow the only defiance against the cold. Tonight, the people face a test that will stretch the limits of endurance. The storm has raged for days. The entrance is nearly sealed by snow, leaving just a narrow vent through which smoke escapes. The light that filters through it is faint and grey. Yet inside, the clan works with quiet precision. This is not their first great winter, and their knowledge has been shaped by generations of survival. Archaeological evidence from deep cave settlements shows adaptations made to withstand extreme cold. Stones arranged to reflect heat inward, animal hides stretched over openings, and narrow corridors chosen to trap warmth. Each decision was a masterpiece of instinctive engineering. You watch as the group reinforces the hide that seals the entrance, securing it with heavy bones. Others drag pieces of wood closer to the fire, feeding it in short intervals to maintain an even burn. The heat rises, meeting the cool air that leaks from outside, forming a mist that hangs just above your head. Every breath feels thick, every movement deliberate. This is not comfort anymore. It is resilience turned into ritual. One man takes a hollowed log and sets it near the fire, filling it with glowing embers. Soon the heat spreads through the wood, creating a gentle, radiant warmth that lasts for hours. It is an early version of central heating, a brilliant improvisation that archaeologists still puzzle over. How did they understand heat transfer so precisely without ever naming it? The answer lies in observation. Thousands of nights spent watching flame and stone taught them what worked. The smell inside the cave changes as they burn different woods. Pine fills the air with its sharp, sweet resin. Birch adds a faint tang, and occasionally someone throws in dried moss that sizzles and smokes quickly. The layers of scent create an atmosphere that feels both protective and strangely soothing. Fat lamps flicker along the wall, their small lights multiplied by wet stone. The shadows sway, and the illusion of movement comforts the eye. A woman near the fire prepares the bedding. She shakes out furs that have grown damp, laying them in thick, overlapping layers. Beneath, the old moss is replaced with fresh straw stored at the back of the cave. She works quickly, her hands practiced. When she finishes, she spreads a hide at the edge of the fire for a small child to rest on. The child curls up instantly, already half asleep despite the noise of the storm outside. The others gather closer. The fire crackles, throwing bursts of warmth into the air. Someone stirs a pot hung above the flames, its contents a mixture of fat, bone broth, and dried roots. The smell fills the chamber. This meal, rich in calories, is designed not for pleasure but for survival. The thick liquid coats the throat, warming from within. They eat slowly, savoring each sip. When the pot is empty, silence returns except for the rhythm of wind and fire. In a corner, the eldest of the group adjusts a fur curtain hung between two rocks. The fabric trembles slightly as warm air circulates behind it. That curtain creates a second layer of insulation, a simple but brilliant innovation. It traps heat and keeps the cold air that seeps from the walls at bay. Evidence of such partitions has been found in ancient shelters, layers of animal skin or woven grass used to divide space. They turned raw caves into homes. You pull the fur around your shoulders tighter and feel the heat cling to your skin. It is dense, steady, almost liquid. The air hums faintly with the sound of the storm pushing at the entrance. Yet inside, there is calm. The people have done everything they can. The rest is patience. One of the hunters sharpens his spear by the fire, more from habit than need. The sound of stone against bone echoes softly. Another sits beside him, weaving sinew into cord for future traps. Even trapped inside, they find purpose. It keeps fear from taking root. The act of working through danger is its own kind of courage. Suddenly, a gust of wind forces its way through the narrow vent. The fire flickers wildly, and a few sparks leap into the air. For a moment, the cave brightens. Faces glow with orange light, eyes wide. Then the flame steadies again, and a long breath escapes the group all at once. Relief ripples through the air, unspoken but shared. The storm is testing their defenses, and for now, the defenses hold. Experts studying soot layers in Ice Age dwellings have found intervals where smoke buildup nearly vanished, suggesting advanced control of airflow. These people learned to shape the invisible currents that moved through their shelters, creating equilibrium between heat and air. Their survival depended not on brute strength, but on understanding how the world breathed. Hours pass, and the sound of the wind lessens. The fire burns lower now, reduced to a soft glow. The group begins to settle again, lying close beneath heavy furs. The storm has not yet ended, but fatigue wins over fear. One by one, their breathing slows. The crackle of embers becomes the night's only sound. You listen to it carefully, feeling the pulse of warmth against your cheek. The temperature inside the cave remains constant, a miracle of cooperation between fire, fur, and human intention. Outside, the blizzard still howls. Inside, there is peace. Before you close your eyes, you look once more toward the entrance. The hide still holds, the snow piled high against it now glistening faintly in the dim light. You realize that behind every moment of sleep in this frozen world lies immense labor, gathering fuel, layering hides, managing breath and fire. Comfort is earned here, built from intelligence and persistence. As your eyelids grow heavy, the fire softens into a deep red glow. The storm rages unheard. Within these walls, warmth feels eternal, as if the cave itself is protecting you. For one more night, life endures, glowing quietly in the heart of winter. By the time the storm weakens, the world outside has turned silent and silver. The snow lies in smooth waves, glittering faintly under the first trace of dawn. Inside the cave, you can feel the change before you see it. The air softens, the smell of smoke thins, and the people begin to stir with that special relief that follows danger. When the worst has passed, the human heart remembers how to laugh. At first, the sound is small. Someone mutters a sleepy complaint, and a soft chuckle answers from the other side of the fire. Soon, the tension that gripped the group for days begins to melt. Smiles appear, voices rise, and for the first time in what feels like weeks, you hear laughter that isn't nervous or forced. It rolls through the cave like sunlight finally breaking through clouds. Every clan that survived the Ice Age understood the value of this release. Most historians agree that humor was as vital as food or warmth. Jokes and teasing helped dissolve fear and rebuild courage. A shared laugh could turn exhaustion into energy. It reminded everyone that even in a world of hunger and frost, joy was still possible. You watch a hunter sitting cross-legged by the fire, pretending to scold the embers for sleeping too long. His voice is exaggerated, his gestures wide, and the children burst into giggles. A woman nearby hides her smile behind a fur, while another throws a small bone toward him in mock annoyance. The sound of play fills the air, mingling with the scent of smoke and thawing hides. The older members smile too, though they conserve their laughter, nodding with amusement. For them, humor is sacred, not trivial. It is proof that they have endured again. Even when food is scarce and cold bites through every breath, laughter keeps despair from hardening into silence. Anthropologists studying traditional Arctic cultures have noted the same phenomenon. Groups that laughed often during crises showed stronger cooperation and lower stress. The Ice Age families likely discovered this long before science gave it a name. As the warmth rises again, the fire crackles with renewed energy. Someone drops a handful of dried berries into the pot of broth. The sound of boiling begins, a soft rhythm that blends with murmurs of conversation. You notice how voices weave together, low hums, quiet teasing, shared memories of the storm. These exchanges are not random. They rebuild social harmony, mending the invisible threads strained by fear. One of the children crawls toward the entrance, poking at the layer of snow that blocks it. A thin stream of light seeps through, glowing golden against the ice. The child gasps, delighted. The adults watch with affection. That small beam feels miraculous, a promise that the world still exists beyond the walls. They open the vent wider, letting fresh air flow in. The scent of pine returns, crisp and alive. You can almost taste relief in the air. It smells like melting frost, like animal fat cooling after the fire, like clean breath. People stretch and move about, adjusting their layers, checking supplies. A young man tosses a snowball at another, laughing when it explodes in a puff of white dust. Even the animals tethered near the back of the cave shift and snort, sensing the calm. Life begins to vibrate again with movement. There is something beautiful about how quickly warmth returns once fear is gone. A few moments of humor, a shared glance, a little teasing, and the entire space feels lighter. Modern psychologists might call it emotional regulation, but it is really a form of collective healing. The heart remembers how to trust. An older woman begins to hum a tune. It rises gently, a melody you have heard before, simple and circular. Soon others join in, their voices blending like waves of breath. The sound fills the cave, soft but strong. It is not exactly a song, not yet music in the way we know it. It is rhythm, heartbeat, and gratitude woven together. The hum becomes a thread that connects everyone, reminding them that life is still theirs to share. You sit quietly, letting the vibration wash over you. It seems to enter the very stone. Perhaps this is what the first songs were, warmth translated into sound. No words, no instruments, just the body echoing its relief. Music, in its earliest form, was therapy against the cold. An intriguing detail found in a cave in southern France supports this idea. Near sleeping areas, researchers discovered bone flutes and carved whistles, their placement suggesting they were used not during hunting but during moments of rest. The tones they produced were soft, calming, and perfectly tuned to the echo of stone walls. These instruments might have been used after hardship, helping the mind transition from fear to tranquility. The group eats together, sharing what remains of the broth. They speak of simple things, how the wind sounded last night, how the hides held firm, how much snow must now lie outside. Their words are gentle, rhythmic, easy. This is what safety feels like. One child, restless, begins to draw lines in the ash with a stick. The shapes are circles, animals, maybe faces. A few others join in, turning the soot-covered floor into a temporary playground. Their laughter bounces off the stone, bright and echoing. Even the oldest members watch, smiling quietly. They know how precious this noise is. It means the night has passed, and the tribe has endured. As the fire burns lower, a soft light filters through the entrance again. The storm has stopped. Outside, the snow glows blue and white beneath the sky. The youngest runs forward, squealing at the sight, while others follow more slowly, blinking at the brilliance. For a moment, the cave fills with the sound of footsteps crunching on snow and laughter bursting into the open air. You stay by the fire, feeling warmth on your hands. Around you, the walls gleam faintly in the morning glow. The storm has taken much, but it has also given something back. The reminder that love and humor, even in the harshest times, are the strongest shelters of all. Night returns once more, and the air feels calm but heavy with memory. The storm has passed, yet a strange stillness lingers. The clan settles back into its familiar rhythm, though a sense of reverence fills the space. Tonight, one person will not sleep. Near the fire, the shaman prepares for the long vigil, arranging objects that seem at once mysterious and deeply ordinary: feathers, bones, smooth stones, and a small bowl of glowing embers. You watch quietly from your place among the firs. The others lie down, their bodies relaxing in the warmth, their eyes closing one by one. The shaman remains upright, wrapped in layers of hide, face painted with ash and ochre. The firelight flickers across features that seem carved from stone. Every movement is slow, almost meditative. The sound of breathing fills the cave again, steady and soft, as if the earth itself exhales through the sleepers. In every known ancient culture, someone stayed awake during the night. Modern scholars believe this figure served many purposes: healer, dream interpreter, keeper of balance. The shaman's wakefulness ensured that the group was never fully unguarded. Yet beyond protection, there was something spiritual in the act of remaining conscious while others dreamed. It bridged the worlds of body and spirit, of night and dawn. The shaman takes a bundle of herbs from a leather pouch and drops it into the embers. The air fills instantly with a thick, sweet smoke. It smells of resin and sage, of something sharp and earthy. The scent settles into the walls, curling around the sleepers. The smoke is not just fragrance, it is intention. Anthropologists have found traces of burned plants with mild hallucinogenic properties at ancient sites, suggesting that shamans used these scents to reach altered states. Whether or not this one seeks visions, The atmosphere it creates feels otherworldly. A faint rhythm begins, a gentle tapping of bone against stone. The sound repeats, unhurried, echoing faintly through the chamber. It seems to merge with the drip of water from the ceiling and the crackle of the fire. Slowly, the rhythm becomes a pulse. The shaman hums in time with it, a low vibration that resonates in your chest. It is not music in the modern sense, but it carries meaning all the same. The hum grows softer, then fades entirely. For a while, there is only silence. You can feel it pressing gently against your skin. Then a whisper begins, a string of words too quiet to understand, maybe even a language no one fully speaks anymore. The tone is rhythmic, soothing, almost like a prayer spoken directly to the fire. Archaeologists studying prehistoric ritual chambers have found soot marks in spiral shapes, perhaps from torches moved in circles during night ceremonies. The same motion appears now as the shaman lifts a small torch and traces a slow spiral in the air. The light moves across the walls, illuminating old paintings, the faces of the sleepers, the shimmer of animal fat on stone. Each circle seems to pull the cave inward, binding the group together through shared warmth and rhythm. You feel your own breathing slow to match the pace of that spiral. The air grows thicker, the shadows deeper. The shaman's presence radiates calm. This is not performance but purpose. Their wakefulness serves as the balance to everyone else's rest, the steady flame that prevents the dark from becoming chaos. Curiously, in several early societies that descended from Ice Age cultures, shamans described dreams of fire that spoke and guided them. It is possible that those stories began in nights like this, when one person, watching over the embers, began to see shapes in the smoke, animals forming and dissolving, voices murmuring in rhythm with the heart. Whether vision or exhaustion, no one can be certain. But such moments may have shaped the beginnings of belief, the idea that the night itself had a consciousness. You glance around the chamber. The sleepers shift occasionally but do not wake. The air hums gently, filled with the sound of quiet life. The shaman continues to watch, eyes reflecting the glow of the fire. Hours pass in this way, time melting into the rhythm of breath and flame. It is strange to think that one person's decision to stay awake might have changed the course of human thought. The act of watching when others sleep nurtured imagination. The lonely silence forced the mind to invent meaning. Perhaps that is where stories of gods, ancestors, and spirits first emerged. When darkness became too vast, the watcher gave it a voice. The shaman leans forward and sprinkles ash onto the fire. Sparks flare, lifting upward like tiny constellations before fading into the ceiling. The light glimmers on the wall, touching the painted bison and handprints, turning them briefly to gold. Then it fades again, leaving the cave darker but somehow lighter in spirit. The watcher's task is almost complete. Outside, the wind sighs through the valley. The first hint of dawn begins to grey the snow beyond the entrance. The shaman exhales slowly, stretching limbs stiff from stillness. The night has held, the fire still burns, the people have rested, balance is restored. You close your eyes, letting that calm fill you. The smell of smoke, the faint taste of ash, the rhythm of fading sound all blend into something ancient and familiar. You realize that rest is not just what happens when the body stops. It is also what happens when one mind chooses to stay present, so others can drift safely into dreams. As the first light touches the cave walls, the shaman sits in silence, watching the glow spread. For a moment, time feels circular, endless. Night becomes day again, and with it, the story of humanity continues, steady as a heartbeat. By mid-season, the world outside the cave begins to shift. The deep snow shrinks into patches, rivers crack open, and birds return with high, echoing cries. The air carries a different scent now, one of thawing soil and faint green growth. The cold will come again, but for a few months the land softens. For the clan, this is the time to move. The migration begins at dawn. The cave that served as home through the brutal winter is quiet now. Smoke stains the ceiling where countless fires have burned, and the smell of old ash lingers like a memory. The people pack carefully, bundles of fur, stone tools, dried meat, and precious firestones that can still spark with a single strike. They do not say farewell aloud. They simply touch the walls one last time. That gesture alone carries meaning enough. Archaeologists studying migration routes have found patterns that match this rhythm. When the first thaw came, Ice Age families left their caves for open valleys and riverbanks. They followed herds, fish runs, and the promise of easier weather. What guided them was not map or compass, but memory. The landscape itself was a living archive of survival. Every ridge and hollow told a story. Every stone marked a past refuge. You follow them out into the pale light. The sun feels unfamiliar after so many nights of firelight. The snow crunches beneath your feet, but patches of earth peek through, soft and damp. The air tastes alive, rich with the smell of thaw. In the distance, you hear water running freely for the first time in months. It sounds almost like laughter. The group moves slowly, carrying everything they own. Children walk between adults, their small feet sinking into slush. The elders keep a measured pace, leaning on sticks polished by many winters of travel. There is no hurry, no panic, only steady movement. They are returning to a cycle older than memory. An interesting clue found in ancient European sites reveals that many Ice Age families return to the same caves year after year. The layers of ash, bones, and tools in those shelters show repeated use separated by seasons of absence. These migrations were not aimless wanderings, but deliberate circuits across familiar land. The world itself was a network of remembered resting places. As they walk, the air grows warmer. You can feel sunlight on your face, faint but kind. The rhythm of footsteps over melting snow becomes hypnotic. The sound of voices drifts through the air, low and contented. A hunter hums softly, perhaps repeating one of the old winter melodies. The children echo him, turning it into a game. The result is music, shaped not by instruments but by motion and shared breath. When the group pauses beside a stream, they rest on the thawed ground. The earth feels spongy, full of water. Someone kneels to drink from the clear current, cupping hands carefully. The taste of cold water is sharp, clean, almost sweet. You realize how rare freshness must have felt after months of melting snow over the same fire. As the sun rises higher, the people begin to walk again. The terrain opens into wide plains still patched with ice. In the distance, dark shapes move against the horizon, herds of reindeer migrating north. The hunters study the movement carefully, deciding which direction to follow. The future will depend on these choices. Researchers who examined Ice Age hunting grounds discovered that routes between caves and plains matched seasonal animal paths. These humans were not wandering blindly but traveling with intention, guided by patterns learned from generations before. It was memory passed through stories and instincts, the wisdom of where warmth could be found, where food would return, where sleep would once again be safe. You can almost feel the invisible thread connecting one cave to another, one night of firelight to the next. Perhaps that is what dreaming taught them, to imagine a place before reaching it, to hold an image in the mind until it became real. The memory of comfort was a compass no storm could erase. By afternoon, the group reaches a ridge overlooking a valley. Below lies a patchwork of stone and grass, dotted with shallow caves. The air carries the smell of water and distant smoke from another family's camp. The elders exchange glances and nods. They will stay here for a time. The children run ahead, their laughter carrying through the air. The sound is the same in every era, freedom rediscovered. The people move methodically, inspecting each hollow for safety. They look for signs of animals, for airflow, for the shape of rock that will hold heat. When they find a suitable spot, they begin to unpack. Firestones strike, sparks leap, and soon the air fills with the smell of smoke again. It feels like home, though the view has changed. This constant movement between shelters shaped their understanding of belonging. Home was not a single place. It was a rhythm of returning, a circle of memory. To sleep deeply in one cave meant knowing that another awaited when the season turned. In that way, rest became both physical and spiritual travel. The evening deepens, and the new fire crackles brightly. The air outside cools, but inside the chosen cave the heat spreads easily. You sit near the entrance, watching the sky fade from blue to violet. The herd still moves across the horizon, shimmering like ghosts of gold and silver. Behind you, the group begins its familiar preparations for sleep, arranging furs, stacking wood, murmuring softly. You understand now that this migration is not only about food or shelter, it is about continuity, the quiet assurance that even after leaving one safe place, another can be made. The dream of warmth carries forward, linking winter to spring, cave to cave, generation to generation. As the stars brighten above, you close your eyes and listen to the fire's first song in this new home. The sound is the same, the warmth unchanged. The earth cradles its travelers once again, and the memory of every cave they have ever known glows faintly inside the flame. The new cave feels like a gift. Its walls curve gently, holding warmth with less effort, and a small crack above the entrance lets the smoke escape perfectly. For a few nights, everything seems easy again. The clan rests well, their laughter light, their bellies full from successful hunts. Yet in this fragile balance, nature still waits to test them. One evening, as dusk deepens into indigo, a cold gust snakes through the entrance. The fire flickers but does not go out. The watchers glance at one another and shrug. The air outside smells sharper, metallic. The wind continues to rise until it moans through the valley. Someone feeds the fire, but the flames hesitate as if uncertain. A few hours later, the temperature inside begins to drop. The children stir under furs, pressing closer to their mothers. The adults add more wood, then more again, but the warmth fails to hold. The draft that usually keeps the air clean now pulls heat away. The smoke that once escaped easily drifts back inside, grey and thick. The fire gasps, as if struggling for breath. You can feel the cold spreading through the stone itself. The walls that once radiated warmth now feel damp and icy to the touch. The group works quickly, covering the vent above, sealing the entrance with hides, stacking stones to block the worst of the wind. It helps for a moment, but not enough. The fire dims again. For the first time in many nights, fear returns. A hunter strikes flint against steel, trying to coax sparks onto dry moss. Nothing catches. The air feels heavy with smoke, the moss too damp. The rhythm of striking repeats again and again, until sparks finally flare. Everyone exhales in relief as a faint orange glow returns. The flame grows, then sputters again when the draft steals its breath. The cold creeps back in. In studies of Ice Age hearths, researchers have discovered layers of ash mixed with stone fragments and bones arranged in deliberate rings. These rings acted as insulation and windbreaks, helping fires survive in unstable air. The people around you now improvise the same solution. They rebuild the hearth, stacking flat stones around the flame to protect it. The work is fast but careful, guided by experience rather than panic. The result is immediate. The flame steadies, its light warm again. The relief is palpable. They have rebuilt safety with their bare hands. Yet something still feels fragile, like the world outside is watching, waiting to remind them how small they are. The night deepens. Snow begins to fall again, quieter this time but relentless. Each flake landing outside adds to the pressure sealing the entrance. The hides tremble slightly under the weight. Inside, the air grows thick and grey. Breathing becomes a conscious act. One woman coughs softly, then another. The smoke swirls near the ceiling, trapped with nowhere to go. To fix this, the oldest man crawls to the vent, lifting one hide just enough to let the air flow. The cold rushes in like a blade. The fire flares brightly, feeding on new oxygen, then steadies again. He lowers the hide carefully, balancing warmth against breath. It is a delicate game between survival and suffocation, one humanity will play until the invention of chimneys thousands of years later. The hunters take turns keeping the fire alive, their faces shining with sweat despite the cold. They pass around a piece of roasted fat, chewing slowly to keep energy flowing. Their eyes meet often but without words. Everyone understands the stakes. An intriguing experiment by modern archaeologists once recreated such a cave fire under similar conditions. The researchers noted that with minimal airflow, carbon buildup could induce dizziness and vivid hallucinations. You wonder if those same sensations visited your Ice Age kin. Perhaps they saw shapes forming in the smoke or felt the air hum with presence. Maybe the line between fear and vision blurred again, as it often does in darkness. The fire steadies at last, burning low but constant. The clan gathers close, wrapping in every remaining hide. Children sleep between adults, their small faces half buried in fur. The smell of smoke clings to everything, thick but oddly comforting. The worst has passed for now. Outside, the snow continues to fall. It muffles the world so completely that the night feels timeless, detached from everything except the faint crackle of the fire. Inside, you sense a quiet resilience. These people are learning what even the strongest creatures must learn. Sometimes, survival is not about strength but about endurance and adaptation. Hours later, the storm fades. The air in the cave clears slowly, revealing soot-blackened walls and tired faces. The people move gently, cautious but relieved. Someone feeds the fire one last time before lying down again. The warmth now feels richer, earned through effort. You rest your hand on the stone beside you. It radiates faint heat again, proof that balance has returned. The walls, once cold and hostile, begin to glow faintly in the light. They have become familiar once more, transformed from obstacle into ally. In that moment, you understand what kept these early people alive through every cruel season. It was not luck or brute force, but the calm persistence to rebuild after each failure, to lose the fire and find it again, to keep breathing through the smoke, to hold warmth in memory until it returns. The group sleeps deeply now. Outside, the snow stops completely. The night clears into stillness. Stars shimmer faintly beyond the entrance, sharp and countless. Inside, a small ember glows, heartbeat red, keeping the promise of life alive until morning. By now you have lived many nights inside these ancient walls. You know the weight of the air, the voice of the wind, the taste of smoke. You know how the cave holds heat and how it exhales when the sun rises. Yet something about this night feels different. The clan has survived another season, and the world itself seems to pause, as if acknowledging the endurance of these fragile bodies. The fire burns steady and bright, smaller now than in the bitter months but still the center of everything. The people gather around it, quieter than usual. They speak in soft tones about the hunt, the weather, and the future. For the first time, no one sounds afraid. They have learned how to make comfort repeatable. The art of sleeping well in a world of frost has become almost an inheritance. What is remarkable, scientists say, is that these ancient sleeping patterns still echo in our biology. Studies of circadian rhythms show that the human brain calms most effectively under the same conditions our ancestors created. Dim light, gentle sound, warmth shared between bodies. The lessons of those caves still whisper through our nervous systems. Even modern rest relies on the same primal cues that once guided survival. You glance at the wall and notice the faint outlines of soot trails from dozens of fires past. The blackened layers shimmer in the orange light like the rings inside an old tree. They are the archive of thousands of nights of human breath. Each layer carries the story of a winter endured, a family protected, a dream remembered. A young woman sits near the fire, braiding a cord from animal sinew. Her fingers move with calm precision. Around her wrist is a small string of beads made from shells carried here from a distant coast. It is one of the few decorations in this world of stone and fur. Shells this far inland could have been traded, or perhaps found during summer wanderings. Their presence proves that even in hardship, people valued beauty. Modern archaeologists have found similar ornaments beside hearths, suggesting that aesthetics were not a luxury, but a necessity. Beauty, like warmth, sustained the mind. You touch the smooth surface of a nearby rock and realize how polished it has become from generations of contact. The habit of resting a hand on stone, of grounding the body before sleep, might have taught the first humans the comfort of texture. Even today, we seek similar reassurance through the softness of blankets and the weight of pillows. The connection between body and material began here, in the quiet cradle of rock. Some researchers suggest that the darkness of these caves allowed the human mind to evolve deeper forms of rest. With no flicker of artificial light and no sharp boundaries between waking and dreaming, early humans slipped easily between consciousness and imagination. Their nights were long, yet they were not restless. The body obeyed the darkness, and the mind wandered safely within it. You breathe slowly, letting your own eyes adjust to the same dim glow. The sound of the fire is gentle, the rhythm of breath familiar. A mother hums softly to a child who refuses to settle. The tune is low and repetitive, the melody more feeling than sound. Listening, you sense that the song has no beginning or end. It is a loop, a circle, like the seasons themselves. The hum mingles with the dripping of water from the ceiling. Together they create the world's first lullaby. This combination of sound and stillness was enough to slow the heartbeat, to quiet the mind. The repetition told the body it was safe. Sleep came easily when the world outside had been held at bay. An interesting observation from modern sleep studies shows that people who spend time in environments mimicking natural light-dark cycles report deeper rest and more vivid dreams. It seems the human body still longs for the rhythm of firelight and the darkness that follows. The artificial brightness of our age has not erased the echo of those caves. It merely buries it. As you sit there, you imagine the first moment a prehistoric person woke and watched the fire dim, realizing they had slept through the night without fear. That recognition must have felt profound, almost holy. Safety was not permanent, but it was possible. To wake warm, surrounded by familiar faces, was to know that life could be more than struggle. It could contain moments of peace. You look at the people around you now. Their breathing is slow, their faces peaceful. The fire paints their cheeks gold. The children's small hands rest open, fingers curled loosely as if they hold invisible dreams. The elders sleep sitting upright, heads tilted slightly forward, expressions serene. This tableau feels timeless. If you stepped away, centuries could pass, and nothing here would change. Perhaps this is what our modern world has forgotten. Sleep is not only the absence of movement, it is a conversation between body and environment. The hum of air, the smell of smoke, the nearness of others, these are the things that taught humanity how to rest. The cave was not just shelter, it was a teacher. It shaped the nervous system, the imagination, and even the way we define safety. You realize that when people today close their eyes in a darkened room, the same ancient instinct still guides them. The body recalls the rhythm of the fire, the closeness of family, the security of stone around it. The warmth of a blanket is the memory of fur. The sigh of a heater is the echo of wind outside a sealed entrance. The past lives quietly within each night's rest. The fire snaps gently, breaking the stillness. A few sparks rise and vanish. You stretch, feeling the air shift against your skin. The warmth is perfect, not stifling, not cold. Your breathing matches the rhythm of those around you. For a brief moment, everything feels aligned. Outside, the night stretches over the valley. The snow glows faintly under the stars, and a thin mist moves along the river. Inside, the last fire of winter burns low but steady. You close your eyes, aware that soon this clan will move again, carrying fire, stories, and dreams to the next shelter. The legacy of their nights will continue far beyond these walls. The season turns gently now. The air at the cave's mouth no longer bites, but carries the faint sweetness of thawing grass. The river beyond has broken free of its icy shell, and its voice drifts faintly through the valley. Inside, the fire burns smaller each night, no longer a desperate defense against the cold, but a quiet companion marking the passage of time. The people are preparing to leave this cave for the last time. You sit with them as they sort their tools and furs, their movements slow, unhurried. No one seems eager to go, yet everyone knows it is time. The air feels different, lighter somehow, as though the cave itself is exhaling. Months of smoke have left the walls dark and shining, yet patches of colour remain from the paintings made in earlier nights. They gleam softly now in the daylight, red and black and ochre, reminders of stories whispered before sleep. The youngest child laughs near the entrance, delighted by the first moth of the season fluttering in the light. Others smile at the sound. For the clan, laughter and birdsong mean survival has succeeded. There is food enough, warmth enough, and the promise of more beyond the valley. The ice is retreating, and the land opens its arms again. Archaeologists studying the layers of soot and debris in such winter shelters often find a sharp change near the top. Traces of pollen, lighter ash, cleaner air. These marks record the final nights of habitation before families moved towards summer plains. To them, the caves were never prisons but seasonal havens. They belonged to the rhythm of migration as much as the fire and hunt. The group begins their final ritual of gratitude. The elder, who kept the fire through the darkest nights, kneels by the hearth, stirring the ashes with a smooth bone. She scatters a handful of dried herbs into the fading coals, and a pale ribbon of smoke rises. The scent fills the cave: pine, sage, and faint sweetness of dried berries. It is not a prayer in words, but an offering. The smoke drifts upward, brushing the ceiling where soot has thickened for generations, merging with the memory of every fire that ever burned here. They do not rush to extinguish the last flame. Instead, they let it shrink naturally, feeding it just enough to stay alive until the moment of departure. Each person touches the warm stone at the edge of the hearth, the same gesture repeated countless times. Some whisper softly, others remain silent. There is no grief in the ritual, only quiet reverence. A young hunter packs embers into a hollowed piece of wood lined with moss and bark. He will carry this living spark to their next camp. Archaeological evidence shows that such portable embers were treasured possessions, protected with the same care as tools or food. They allowed fire to be reborn wherever the group settled again. The act of carrying flame was both practical and sacred, a literal continuation of life. You watch as they gather near the entrance. The air outside glows golden, scattered with drifting snow that melts before touching the ground. The first green shoots are beginning to pierce the soil. The valley smells of wet stone and renewal. Each step outside feels like stepping into another world, but the memory of the cave clings gently, a second skin of warmth and smoke. Before leaving, a woman turns back to look inside. The light catches her face, and for a moment she seems to see not just the cave, but the echo of every night spent there. The hum of songs, the laughter after storms, the faint glow of embers keeping death away. She smiles, places a hand on the wall, and then follows the others into the open air. Inside, the fire dwindles at last. The smoke curls upward in slow spirals, then fades. The cave is silent again, empty except for the faint warmth still radiating from the stones. It will cool soon, but the scent of human life will linger for a while, a whisper of existence carried in the minerals and soot. Centuries from now, another group will find this place. They will notice the blackened ceilings, the layered ash, the handprints still faintly visible in red ochre. They will wonder about the people who lived here, how they endured, how they dreamed. Perhaps they will understand what you now feel, that this cave was not just shelter, but a cradle of the human spirit. The wind returns, moving softly through the entrance. It stirs the dust, the scent of herbs, the faint remnants of warmth. The cave breathes again, waiting for the next travelers who will need it. For now, it rests. You follow the clan into the open plain. The sky is immense, full of color after months of grey. The earth feels soft beneath your feet. Behind you, the cave shrinks into shadow, yet its memory burns inside you. The rhythm of its silence, the comfort of its walls, the song of its fire, they all remain, carried forward like embers within your chest. The people move in a long line toward the horizon. The river gleams beside them. The wind carries the scent of melting snow, and the light of early spring wraps the land in calm. The harshness of winter has ended, and with it comes a promise older than history itself. There will be more nights, more fires, more dreams. As darkness gathers again, they will make new shelters. They will lay fresh bedding, strike sparks, and watch flame bloom against stone. And when they close their eyes, they will drift into the same deep, ancient peace that once filled every corner of this cave. The story quiets now. The snow has melted, the fires are low, and the last echoes of footsteps fade into the distance. You remain still for a moment, breathing softly, feeling the warmth of what once was. The air around you is gentle, heavy with the scent of smoke and memory. Imagine the rhythm of your breath, matching the slow pulse of the earth, steady and patient. Let your thoughts soften, as if sinking back into the same silence that once wrapped those ancient sleepers. Picture the cave behind your eyelids, the flicker of its light dimming until only warmth remains. The cold cannot reach you here. The wind outside is calm. The night is safe. If you listen closely, you might still hear the murmur of their voices, faint as water beneath ice. They whisper the same promise that carried them through every winter. Rest now, for the world will wait. The fire fades completely. The stars brighten. The air grows still. Let the quiet settle around you and drift with it, gently and slowly, into the deep, timeless sleep that has always belonged to humankind. Sweet dreams.